Chapter 16. Pam, Jasmine's perspective. I felt very conflicted the next few weeks as I noticed Juaria/Jay looking upset. The look you give when you're filled with regret. Something I also noticed was my classmate, Pam Palmer, watching me from a distance. I tried to pay no attention to them, but she knew what I was doing. Pam came up to me from behind in the hall before school started and grabbed my arm tightly. Without stopping or slowing down, she dragged me into the nearest classroom, then pushed me forward, causing me to stumble. I turned to face an angry, green-eyed stare. Ow! I rubbed my arm. She crossed her arms. If you're in danger, you need to say something. I backed up. What are you talking about? Syara doesn't seem like an ordinary mortal, does she? She pushed. What are you getting at, Pantherye? I gasped, covering my mouth. I know some gods' identities based on looks. Not all of them, of course. I didn't know Juaria's until she told me. Her eyes narrowed. What did you say? She grabbed my arm. Did she tell you? I shook my head fast. No, it's just easy to tell either by looks or mannerisms. She looked at me with a mixed look of fear and curiosity, letting go of my arm. How? I mean, facial features, hair, attitude. She raised her hand. No. I mean, how are you able to see past the spell? Only gods are able to do that. What spell? I asked. She sat on top of a desk and crossed her legs. When we decided to disguise ourselves among the mortals, my mom cast a spell. Unless we ourselves let you in on who we are, a god has a glamour disguise so mortals can't tell who we are when we aren't wearing our god clothes. No one except you. She narrowed her eyes. So, did Lypye tell you? I shook my head. And even if she did, if what you say is true, I won't believe her. She's known for lying and manipulating. In order to see through that disguise, you'd have to tell me. Then what makes you so special? I stayed silent, not knowing the answer. Pantherye pressed on. How many gods do you know the identities of? You, Juaria, Lypye, and Kekon, I listed. Not Hyena? I shrugged. I have a few ideas, but I haven't pinpointed him, no. Did Lypye tell you? Or did you? She stole my laptop to get her disguise self-registered at the school, I admitted. I shifted nervously. Can I tell you something? More like show you something. Something Lypye doesn't know about me. She chuckled and I pulled out a quarter, then held my palm out, quarter in the center of it. She spoke up. What, are you going to tell me you have powers or? I stared at the coin and caused it to hover out of my hand. Keeping concentration, I moved it through the air to Pantherye's knee. Something, she finished. She stared at me in shock and amazement. How? Are you a demigod? No, I responded. She picked up the coin and jumped off of the desk, walking over to me. Who else knows of these powers? My mom? She studied my face. No other family or friends? I took a deep breath. My mom told me to hide my powers. A mortal with powers is unnatural. She told me that other cat humans might take advantage of me if they found out. Your mom's smart, she admitted. Why tell me, though? You're on the Syara team. I should have told Juaria, but I don't know. I've kept this a secret for so long. She nodded. You didn't know who you could trust. I looked down. She put her hands on my shoulders. Telling me or keeping it a secret, in my opinion, both are good decisions. She smiled, looking back up. It's hard keeping it in. Does Lypye know? I shook my head. I trust her, to a degree. I have not lost my sense of security, though. I can only tell her what I see based on observation. How she acts emotionally is all based upon her actions. I can't control how she chooses to act. So basically, you trust her enough to show your vulnerabilities, but you still wouldn't put it past her to make you use your powers for evil. I nodded. Something I've noticed is that she has a lot of resentment towards Juaria. She fuels Lypye's anger, and her anger fuels how she speaks and acts. She isn't evil, but that hadn't stopped anyone from believing she is, even before Car's death. She stared into my eyes, both angry and uncertain. Are you accusing the gods of not being fair to her when she was young? I raised my eyebrows. Were you? I stayed silent for a while, then looked down. Oh, she did. No. Mom was constantly hovering over her, and most of the gods refused to talk to her. Juaria and I excluded her from the Syara team in fear of her double-crossing us. When she killed Carr, she teared up a little. I told the gods that we needed her testimony before we ever thought about banishing her. Juaria didn't want to listen, and Mom, who seemed to be the most angry, was in agreement. I lowered my voice. I feel like she just wanted to be heard, but she hides that with anger, feeling like no one will listen. Juaria wants to sit down and talk with Lypye about everything, Pantherye muttered. We both stood there in silence, not knowing what to say. There came a soft knock on the door, then Juaria peeked her head in. Pam? I have been looking for you. Jay, Pantherye responded. Jasmine and I were talking in private. She walked in and tried to close the door, but stopped short, hearing a loud bang. The door was forced open by Lypye. She then slammed it shut when she was in. It's a party in here, Lypye said with a smirk. Pantherye crossed her arms. Get out! Lypye shook her head. Why should I? Sarah and Jay. Out! Pantherye gritted her teeth. I'm trying to have a convo with Jasmine. Lypye walked over and grabbed my arm tight. And the conversation is over. Hey! Juaria touched Lypye's arm. Let her go, please. Lypye rolled her eyes. This is where you learn that please doesn't work for everything. Pantherye walked over to me and ripped Lypye's hand off of my arm. Then take your hands off of her. I'm not asking. Lypye pushed her away from her. I walked over to the desk and sat down lightly banging my head against the desk repeatedly. Can we just be in a room together without the hostility for 5 minutes? Juaria asked. I laid my head on the desk. That would be amazing. Lypye rested her hands under my shoulders. Look, Jasmine is uncomfortable. Pantherye crossed her arms. And whose fault is that? I looked back at Lypye, who was glaring at Pantherye. You're the one trying to kick me and Jay out. She and I were discussing something. Lypye put her hands on her hips. And what would that be? Juaria looked at Pantherye, suspicious. I would like to know that as well. Pantherye stayed silent, avoiding all eye contact. I sighed. Can I, for once, not be in the middle of a sibling rivalry? Wait, you know... Lypye and Juaria started before they both covered their mouths. Pantherye nodded. Yes, I told her. Thought it would be easier for the investigation. Juaria nodded. As did I. I stood up as Lypye grabbed my wrist. The both of us backed up slowly as Pantherye and Juaria looked at us. Well, this has been fun, Lypye started. Hold it, Juaria yelled. Dash! Lypye shouted, pulling me out of the room. I ran with her through the halls until we were sure we lost them. Once we stopped, I fell to the floor, laughing hysterically. Lypye stared at me. Oh no, you've lost it. No, I said between laughs. It's just, that was kind of fun. Lypye smirked. Oh really? I held my side, calming my laughter, then stood up. Don't read too much into it. Okay, let's get to class, Lypye commanded. This was the first time ever I had seen Lypye content instead of angry. I walked behind her, smiling. Chapter 17, Decision, Lypye's Perspective. I paced back and forth in mine and Jasmine's room. It's been a few weeks since mine and Nicholas's conversation, and I've taken everything he said into consideration. Jasmine has a bright future ahead of her, but with me, I might ruin that. She could end up in jail with me, and is that what I want? Jasmine is not someone who deserves to be in jail. She's too sweet and innocent, definitely not a jailbird type. Nicholas, although mainly emotionless, does show a genuine concern for his sister. She walked in with a cup of water and I turned to face her. I was back in my skimpy god outfit, black eyeliner and everything. She stared at me, confused. You leaving? I sighed. I'm turning myself in. She set her cup down on her bedside table and rushed up to me. Why? I started pacing again. With how long I've gone on with evil, my future is fucked unless I want to stay in hiding the rest of my life. I stopped pacing and stared at her. You have a very bright future. You're smart and very much on track with life. If Juwaria, she cut me off. You forced me to hide you. Life or death situation, they wouldn't listen to me. Would you be willing to admit that? Or more, would you be able to convince them that the friendship is fake? She crossed her arms. We never declared we were friends. Do you think of me as a friend? No. I took a deep breath and turned to leave the room, feeling hurt, but Jasmine grabbed my wrist. I think of you as a sister. I turned back around to face her warm smile. I've only known her for a few months, but it feels much longer. Back then, I would have cared less about Jasmine, but now she sees me like no one else has. She listens to me and respects me, not out of fear, but sisterly love. That's all I've ever wanted. I pulled my wrist away, not looking at her. I just don't want to ruin your life because you're hiding me here. She hugged me from behind. You think I don't understand the risk? As long as you're safe and happy, my life will not be ruined. I turned around, but your future is not known. It might not go the way you think, she reassured me. I looked down. She is right. I keep letting her little mortal brother get in my head. Something clicked in my head. Did he do that out of love for his sister, or did he say that to trick me into leaving? There's something off about Nicholas, but what? Who put these thoughts in your head? She asked, almost as if she could hear my thoughts. I shook my head. I did as soon as I started caring about you. She smiled. I'm going to pop some popcorn. Maybe afterwards we could watch a movie. She walked out of the room, closing the door lightly. Jasmine, although definitely not perfect, has a heart. She was willing to risk everything for family. This family definitely proves the point that blood does not always make you family. Nicholas and I were both adopted by Jasmine's mom, but Jasmine in particular has made me feel more welcome than anyone else in my life, including my parents and siblings. I was more than happy to call her my sister. There came a high-pitched scream from downstairs. Jasmine! I dashed down the stairs fast, running all the way to the kitchen. The sight I saw was the one thing I never considered. King was standing there, keeping Jasmine's back close to him while holding Jasmine's jaw. Jasmine's eyes were filled with fear, and she was on the verge of tears. Kim was leaning against the kitchen sink, smirking. I tensed up and walked forward, but King cocked his head, raised his eyebrows, and smirked. One step closer and I'll snap her neck. I immediately froze. Let her go, King. If it's something I did, let's settle this outside. There's no need to drag Jazz into this. I tried. King chuckled. Listen here, little shit. You're going to do as I say, or this mortal that you dragged into all this pays the price. I was shaking with an undeniable rage, but I knew King all too well. He wouldn't hesitate to kill her. I sighed. What do I need to do? He glanced at Kim, who pushed herself off of the sink and began slowly pacing in front of me. Find a way to distract the Syara team long enough for us to carry out our plan. This distraction has to be enough to get you arrested. That way, you're out of the way as well. I started. No! I heard Jasmine yell. Looking over, I saw Jasmine trying to escape King's hold. Don't do it! King slammed her into the counter, then pushed her face down on top of it. Kim was snickering. Enough! I yelled. I'll do it on one condition. No further harm comes to Jasmine. No, I heard Jasmine whisper. Is it a deal? I asked. King smirked. It's a promise. I saw him let Jasmine stand up, but still keep a firm grip on both her wrists. One more thing. I started. I'm not stupid. Something I've learned about King and Kim is that they'll tell you whatever you want to hear, but they never keep their word. Jasmine, the closet is safer than one might think. I gave her a small smirk, then walked out of the first door in the kitchen. If you kept going straight, you would go outside. I glanced back, then turned right. When I was sure King and Kim weren't looking, I descended down the stairs into the darkness of the basement, desperately hoping Jasmine understood me to set my plan in motion.